A $7,500 transmission rebuild on a luxury Cadillac SUV with barely 105,000 miles. I've seen it more than once. Burned clutch packs, torque converter shudder that feels like rumble strips at 40 miles per hour, valve body wear that turns smooth shifts into jolts. Owners think it's a minor glitch until the estimate lands. Meanwhile, some gearboxes pass 200,000 miles with nothing but fluid changes. Same badge, very different outcomes. After 20 years tearing down Cadillac drivetrains, the pattern is clear. A few are engineered to last. Others fail, predictably. Today, I'm exposing the 3 worst Cadillac transmissions to avoid and the 4 best that can actually last. And one of the most popular wouldn't make my driveway. My 3rd worst Cadillac transmission, the one you really need to know about if you're shopping 2020 to 2021 sedans, is the 10L80 10-speed automatic. It's supposed to be GM's best gearbox yet, as more gears mean lower RPM at cruising speed, smoother acceleration, and better fuel economy. Some early 10L80s in Cadillac CT4, CT5, and CT6 models have harsh shifting and internal wear that most owners didn't expect from a flagship luxury car. GM even had to issue recalls and software updates because of it, which tells you everything you need to know about how serious this problem can be. A valve inside the control valve body in the 10L80 can wear excessively as the miles stack up, especially somewhere between 60 and 90,000 miles, creating a drop in hydraulic pressure that leads to hard upshifts or downshifts. In some rare cases, this pressure loss can let the wheels momentarily lock up while the transmission tries to downshift from 8th gear. Just imagine cruising on the highway and suddenly the car shudders because the rear wheels grabbed hard. Some dealers recommend installing updated TCM software that watches for this wear and limits the transmission to 5th gear if it's detected. But that's not a cure. If you have this 10L80 transmission, a valve body repair, which is the part that actually wears and needs replacement, can cost $1,500 to $3,000 in parts and labor, depending on whether the technicians have to disassemble the transmission to fix it properly. That's far more than a simple fluid change, and it's not unusual to see this transmission go into limp mode, with reduced propulsion messages before it fails completely. Many Cadillac owners in the shop deal with harsh 3 to 4 shifts or 7 to 8 shifts, jerky behavior at low speeds, or hesitation when accelerating. These symptoms are easy to ignore at first, but actually lead to worse problems. Now, there is one upside, and that's that this transmission can operate well in many vehicles. Many owners never hit the valve wear threshold if they aren't driving hard or piling on miles fast. But if you want long-term performance, you need to be careful. If you're considering getting a Cadillac with the 10L80 from this early run, check the recall status first and make sure the dealer has installed the latest TCM software and checked internal wear. Even then, know that a 10L80 that's been beaten hard or with neglected fluid changes can turn into a $3,000 transmission job faster than you'd think. My 2nd worst Cadillac transmission is a gearbox that's notorious among Texan owners, and that's the 6L80 6-speed automatic, found in many pre-2015 Cadillacs, especially in models like the CTS, STS, XTS, and early Escapades. The 6L80 promised to be a solid GM transmission. It handles torque well, shifts smoothly when healthy, and was used across trucks, SUVs, and rear-drive cars for over a decade. But in Cadillacs, especially with the heavier bodies and luxury driving habits, the weak points start showing up around 80 to 100,000 miles and often get worse from there. The biggest culprit? The factory torque converter and the way heat builds inside it. The torque converter clutch on the stock 6L80 was designed more for fuel economy than long-haul durability. That means the converter's internal clutch engages and slips under load in a way that generates heat and wears the lining prematurely. As the clutch lining flakes off, metal debris circulates through the transmission, contaminating the valve body and pressure circuits. Once that debris gets going, everything else starts wearing faster. You might see your Cadillac shuddering under light acceleration or smelling burnt fluid. A Cadillac owner came into the shop with a 2012 XTS with 95,000 miles, complaining of a vibration around 35 to 55 miles per hour. It felt like the engine had a misfire, but the codes pointed right to torque converter clutch wear. We dropped the pan, and found shredded converter material everywhere. By then, the pump was scored and pressure was dropping, and the only practical fix was a transmission rebuild. At a shop, that might cost $4,000 to $6,000, and that's before you consider towing or rental costs. Overheating is another real enemy. The 6L80 runs hot under load, especially in heavier Cadillac bodies. The factory cooling circuit isn't always enough on its own, and when temperatures climb above 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, fluid starts breaking down, pressure drops, and the internal clutches deteriorate faster. Without a good external cooler and frequent fluid changes, what could have run long miles turns into a ticking time bomb. You can try to stay ahead of the issue by doing frequent fluid and filter changes every 30,000 to 50,000 miles, using high-quality Dexron-approved synthetic fluid, and adding an external transmission cooler if you tow or do a lot of highway driving. But even then, the early 6L80 has a history of torque converter failures that often lead straight to a full rebuild or replacement somewhere between 100 and 150,000 miles. That's why I call it one of my worst Cadillac transmissions. My worst Cadillac transmission ever, and one that caught more owners off guard than almost any other, is the LR45/8L90, 8-speed automatic used in Cadillacs from roughly 2015 through 2019. This was supposed to be one of GM's big leaps forward. Since it has more gears, it offers smoother acceleration and better efficiency, adaptive shift logic, and it integrates easily with Cadillac's high-output engines. But the problem is that too many of these transmissions developed a notorious torque converter shudder and shift quality problems that leave drivers feeling like they're riding over rumble strips. The problem is especially common in ATS, CTS, and early Escalade models equipped with this gearbox. At steady speeds between roughly 25 and 80 miles per hour, the torque converter clutch is supposed to lock smoothly to improve efficiency and reduce slip. But in many 8L45/8L90 units, this lockup doesn't happen cleanly because the controlled slip strategy and fluid aging create a vibration you can actually feel through the seat and steering wheel. That's the infamous shudder. And it isn't just a vibration you can ignore. It's a sign that the torque converter clutch and internal fluid dynamics aren't engaging properly. The more time you spend driving like that, the more heat and wear build up inside the valve body and clutch packs. Some owners with this transmission have dealt with this shudder early, as low as 30,000 to 50,000 miles, and sometimes the only thing that makes it go away is a dealer-level transmission fluid flush with the latest spec ATF and even updated valve bodies and wiring harnesses. Caddy owners who came into the shop noticed that a proper fluid change done right with the approved GM ATF cured the issue for thousands of miles after, while others still had lingering symptoms and eventually needed a torque converter replacement or internal clutch work. Many times, dealers need to perform a specific transmission service bulletin procedure that includes the flush and updated fluid to address the lockup clutch behavior. Once the internal clutch material degrades and metal particles circulate, you're looking at repair costs that range from $1,500 to over $3,000 if the clutch packs or torque converter itself need replacement. That's a heavy bill for a luxury sedan's gearbox, especially where owners expect smooth shifts, not intermittent shudder and hesitation. The AT to D gear transitions at low speeds can feel harsh, and the first 1 to 2 shift when cold is often reported as clunky, which only adds frustration for Cadillac drivers used to refined powertrains. There are some pros of this Cadillac transmission. The 8L45/8L90 can deliver crisp shifts and improve fuel economy when healthy, and it's lightweight with clever hydraulic management when new. But the customer experience with inconsistent lockup and the potential for costly internal wear places this transmission firmly as one of the worst Cadillac gearboxes you can own. Now, these are the Cadillac transmissions you don't want to own. Now, let me talk about the ones you'd love to have under the hood. Before I dive into that, this is your cue to hit the like button and subscribe. My pick for the 4th best Cadillac transmission that's actually stood the test of time is the 4T65 EHD/4T80E 4-speed automatic. Now, before you back off after hearing 4 speeds, know that these gearboxes are tough, forgiving, and easy to keep alive. This is exactly what you want in a true Cadillac cruiser. The 4T80E in particular saw a heavy use in classic luxury caddies like the DeVille, DTS, Seville, and Eldorado throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, where they delivered smooth, predictable shifts and rarely turned into a financial nightmare for owners who kept up with basic maintenance. Classics, like a 2002 Eldorado, nearly 200,000 miles still driving around on the original 4T80E. That's not rare as long as it's taken care of. What makes the 4T80E and the 4T65E siblings special in Cadillac applications is simplicity and robustness. They don't have 8 or 10 gears to get confused, and they don't try to be fancy when what you really want is reliability. The 4T80E was built to handle the torque of North Star V8 engines and heavier bodies, up to around 440 pound-feet of torque capacity, and it does so with hardened clutch packs and a big torque converter designed to soak up heat and stress. That's why you see those transmissions cruising along long after their more complex descendants have been replaced or rebuilt. Regular fluid changes with GM Dexron 3 or 6 every 30 to 60,000 miles will keep the internal clutches lubricated and cool. You should also swap the transmission filter to keep dirt out of the valve body. The maintenance cost on these transmissions is predictable too. A proper fluid and filter service runs around $120 to $250 at a shop, and owners who check fluid level every oil change often never have to go any deeper. If a problem comes up, like clutch pack wear or a sticking solenoid, it's usually limited to $800 to $1,800 valve body work or clutch pack repair, not a full teardown. That's a big difference compared to modern, complex automatics where an internal failure means $3,000 to $6,000 for a rebuild. Sure, these transmissions might cost you some fuel economy and they feel a bit old school, but they are highly durable and are a serious contender. My number 3 best Cadillac transmission that actually offers smooth, long-lasting performance is the 2020 and up refined 8L90, 10L80, 8 and 10-speed automatics. After years of GM engineers chasing torque converter shudder and valve wear in the earlier 8-speed units, by around 2020 the design saw real updates like reworked clutch packs, improved friction materials, better fluid flow, and updated transmission control module software that makes shift quality far more predictable on sedans and SUVs alike. You'll find these later transmissions under the hood of Cadillac CT4, CT5, Escalade, and even the larger XT models from around 2020 onward, paired with engines like the improved 3.6-liter V6 and the big 6.2-liter V8s. In everyday driving, a refined 10L80 shifts smoothly and there's minimal hunting between ratios. It feels composed under steady cruise. The updated valve body and clutch materials are designed to reduce internal wear and heat buildup, which is exactly what killed the earlier versions prematurely. These gearboxes also benefit from adaptive shift logic that learns your driving style and adjusts pressure and timing to suit long-term use, which keeps fluid temperatures more stable and helps the transmission live to high miles. Now you still need to focus on proper transmission fluid service. A full drain and fill with the correct GM-specified ATF at intervals around 45 to 60,000 miles keeps the clutch friction surfaces clean and the internal hydraulic pressures where they should be. Change the filter at the same time and you'll remove accumulated debris that can wear out the valve bodies and solenoids. As long as you follow the routine service, this Cadillac transmission will make it well past 150 to 200,000 miles without needing major internal work. There are a few downsides worth paying attention to. Some Cadillac models built right at the start of the 2020 run were included in recalls or software updates because control valve components still wore faster than expected. Dealers have installed updated TCM software that can limit gear use if internal wear is sensed to prevent failures, and GM's later production line includes that fix from the factory on many 2023 model year and newer vehicles. My second best Cadillac transmission is the 6-speed manual Tremec TR-6060. This is the gearbox you find in Cadillac's hardcore performance machines, like the ATS-V and the CT4V or CT5V Blackwing. and it stands out because it's built to deliver. This isn't some slushy automatic that shifts for you. It's one of the most rewarding parts of owning a Cadillac. The TR-6060 is a descendant of the old T56, but GM and Tremec beefed it up for much higher torque and performance. It uses advanced synchronizers to make gear engagement fast and positive, even under boost or high RPM. Cadillac pairs this transmission with engines making over 400 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, and the TR-6060 handles that without flinching when the fluids and clutch are right. What makes this gearbox great is its robust construction and straightforward servicing. Inside, you've got a strong aluminum case, high-quality needle bearings, and close-ratio gear sets that feel tight under load. Unlike some modern autos that hunt for the right ratio, the TR-6060 lets you control the ratio yourself, and that's something enthusiasts love because it's predictable and direct. Last year, I came across a well-maintained TR-6060 in an ATS-V with 150,000 miles. It still shifted nice and tight. DIY care on this transmission is simpler than most automatics. You're looking at changing the gear oil with 75W90 synthetic manual transmission fluid every 30 to 40,000 miles to keep those synchronizers clean and happy. Checking fluid level is easy with the fill plug on the side. If it's low, you can top it off yourself and avoid grinding or crunching between gears. A fresh clutch every 60 to 90,000 miles prevents heat buildup and maintains the transmission. There are a few downsides. Some owners say that the first to second gears can feel a bit notchy when cold or when the fluid is old. That's not a big problem. Most drivers find that with the right fluid and a little time behind the wheel, the TR-6060 becomes smoother and more satisfying than they expected. All of these make this the most robust transmission in a modern Cadillac, as it offers high performance reliability. But it's not the best on my list. My number one best Cadillac transmission, the one that proves a modern Cadillac can have a gearbox that's both smooth and dependable, is the GM 9T50 9-speed automatic. You'll find this transmission in Cadillac crossovers like the XT4 and XT6, where it's paired with engines like the turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder and the more powerful 3.6-liter V6. Unlike earlier multi-speed gearboxes that were either rough or overcomplex, the 9T50 was engineered with adaptive shift logic and torque converter with smart lockup that aims for refinement first. The first thing you notice in day-to-day use is smoothness. Shifts are deliberate and controlled, whether you're easing into traffic or cruising at highway speeds. And the wide gear ratio spread lets the XT4 hold lower RPM at cruising while still having strong responsiveness when you stab at the throttle. This offers relaxed freeway cruising at 1600 to 2000 RPM instead of bouncing up and down like older, fewer gear automatics. What makes the 9T50 stand out is how it balances complexity and durability. The valve body and solenoid system are sensitive, but they also respond well to proper fluid maintenance. I recommend a fluid and filter change every 45,000 miles using GM-approved Dexron 6 fluid, and sticking to that schedule keeps clutch packs clean and internal pressure strong. Ignoring the schedule lets debris and heat buildup erode shift quality and accelerate wear. Now, the early models weren't perfect. The 2019 and 2020 XT4 9T50 units had complaints about transmission shudder, jerky upshifts, and hesitation, especially at low speeds or in stop-and-go traffic. What I always tell customers is that if you're looking at a 2019 to 2022 XT4 or XT6 with the 9T50, confirm every recall and software update that has been done before you buy. When maintained right, this 9-speed can carry a Cadillac well past 150,000 to 200,000 miles without major transmission interventions. This is exactly why it earns my top spot on this list. Choosing the right Cadillac transmission can mean the difference between costly repairs and years of smooth, reliable driving. My advice? Avoid the worst performers, stick with the proven ones, and always stay on top of maintenance. Did you find this video helpful? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe for more real-world tips and advice on how to get the most out of your Cadillac. And don't miss my previous video where I broke down the 3 worst and 4 best Cadillac engines you can buy.